We're back out here once again, and today we're talking about something that when I discovered it, totally revolutionized how I went about bass fishing. Stick around, we're going to talk all about it. There we go, I got him. Ooh, that's big. Get over here. Come here, you. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing. And you know, the sport of bass fishing sure has a lot of rules to it. What baits to throw, where to throw them, what colors those baits should be, how to retrieve them, whether to fish shallow, whether to fish deep, do we have current, do we have wind, what time of year is it, all of those different things. And a lot of times they just end up tying our hands. They end up doing more harm than good. And I get it. These are tips and rules that have been passed down generationally from anglers who developed them decades ago and passed it down as the years went on. And a lot of times, well, they can be effective, but they're based on the wrong perspective. What do I mean by that? They're from the angler's perspective, not the bass. We throw a bait out there, we catch a fish, we say that's a good thing. And we say, okay, well, that happened at this time of year, that happened at this time of day. And maybe once or twice we can replicate that. And a lot of times we think, okay, that's a pattern. And sometimes it may very well be. But sometimes those bass are doing their own thing because they're bass and they are under no obligation to follow the rules we set for them. So I like to think of things from the bass's perspective. I feel like that gives me an advantage. And I was talking to some anglers today at the boat ramp at the big lake before I put the little boat in, and they were pointing out that the bass were busting all along the area. And I told them I'm not even going to target them. Those bass, I'm leaving them completely alone. And a guy looked at me and he says, why? They're right there. All you got to do is throw top water. I said, well, how many of them did you catch today? Oh, I didn't catch nothing. Well, then why would you do that? Why would you do something that's not going to work? Sure, those bass are right there. Sure, those bass are busting up and they're obviously feeding, they're active and they're chasing some type of bait. But are they catchable? Well, for the most part, at least on the big lake, they are not. They are so focused in on the fry balls that they're chasing that they've shut down to pretty much everything else except for live bait. So what did I do? Well, I broke the rules. I went way up north. Actually, I went to the northwest side of the lake this time because I had a feeling those bass were going to be setting up someplace differently. We had a whole bunch of rain. There's a whole bunch of stain to the water, and that causes those bass who are used to clear water to set up a bit differently. They really don't know what to do. On a sunny day, well, they want to hide up under that flooded brush. They want to find some cover, they want to find some structure, and they want to relate to it, and they want to hide under it for the most part. But what do you do if it's a sunny day and there's water stained? Well, those bass, they're going to kind of roam around a little bit, aren't they? But you've got pockets of clearer water, you've got pockets of more stained water. What are those bass going to do? You have to find what those bass are doing in relation to what's going on around them. And the only way to do that is try to see it from their point of view, through their eyes. And once I started doing that, my catch rate started going through the roof. It takes a little observation. It takes time to understand, but it's all part of what we said before. Lures don't catch fish. Let me repeat that because it's very, very important. Lures don't catch fish. Bass patterns and behavior catches fish. That led you to that fish, that told you what presentation you need to use, and that's what put the fish on the end of the hook. Hopefully you were able to retrieve it all the way back to the boat. But it wasn't a lure that got you there. It was understanding bass patterns and bass behaviors. You can do that time and time again. So that's thinking from the bass's point of view. I had these guys tell me, chase the busting bass. They chased it all day. These other guys chased busting bass all day. They threw every topwater they had. didn't catch anything. I went to an area, the water was pretty much slick calm. We only had a little bit of a breeze. We had mostly overcast clouds, but we had a little bit of sun coming through. That water was stained. And I went to work with this guy. I had a this is, I believe, red bug shad zoom trickworm on the good old Waco rig. I know you guys are tired of seeing this, but it's just on a spinning combo, 10-pound braid. I've got it on a 8-pound, I believe, monofilament leader for this because I wanted a little bit more stretch. I wanted a little bit more fall to that. So in other words, I'm fishing a little more slowly. I'm wanting to give those bass just a little bit better chance to inhale that bait before I set the hook. And that's why I have this setup. This is a medium power rod. It's got a little bit slower tip, but I fished it in that area. And I'm telling you what, as soon as I tied that worm on, the very first cast that I tied the worm on and I made the cast, well, this is what happened. All right, fresh battery change. And we changed the worm too. We're going with a red trickworm. Red bug, I think. Red bug shad, something like that. There we go, I got him. Ooh, that's big. Get over here. Come here, you. That's a nice fish. All right. Well, Waco rig strikes again, kids. Waco rig strikes again. Right at 1 pound. Probably maybe 13 inches, something like that. Great fish to start the day after the storm. Thank you, buddy. There he went. All right, let's see if we can get another one. All right, a little fish right at 1 pound, but it was a fish, and that meant there were others in the area. I was on to something. Now, on the other side of the lake, right from where I could see, I did see bass busting. But I wasn't getting fooled by that again. I was not going down that road. I knew that didn't work. I knew I caught that bass here. The bass that I want, the bass that are active for what I'm going to fish for, well, they're in this area. And I had a buddy of mine tell me recently, you know what? If you have a storm that comes through, a big storm that comes through, those bass are going to move up shallow and they're going to want top water. And people will look at me if I tell them that and they'll say, Lowbrow, you are nuts. When there's a lot of rain and that water gets dumped in the lake, those bass go deep. Everybody knows that. They don't go shallow and they don't want top water. Well, my buddy showed me this. He showed me where he was catching bass right in just a couple of feet of water after a thunderstorm. And today, out on the water, a big thunderstorm blew through. I'm telling you what, a huge thunderstorm blew through. Big booming thunder. And old Lowbrow had to go, well, I had to go hide for cover for just a little while that torrential downpour just came down in buckets. That's what. Yeah, that's lightning. My day just ended. My day is over. Woo! It's time to get on out of here, kids. When it comes to that, Lowbrow don't play. Lowbrow don't play at all. It's time to get the heck on out of here. But after it let up, after the wind subsided and the rain subsided, I said, you know what? This is a perfect time to put that to the test. So I went to work first with a head and spook. I went back to the same area, right back to that same area, and I moved up a little bit more into the shallow water. And I was able to get a really nice fish within the first couple casts on that head and spook. But that was the only fish I got on that spook. So I had to change things up again, but I was still going with the same deal. Instead of working faster, I decided I'm going to go slower. And that's where this guy came in, the good old boy howdy. It hasn't been on the channel in a minute, but I've still been using it. And today, this was the star of the show. I ended up catching a couple of really nice fish right out of that same area using this bait. Typical setup for what I'm using. I've got 30-pound braid, and this is a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader, 7-foot medium heavy rod. Now, sometimes I like to go with the 7.2, but out of that little boat, 7-foot works better. Otherwise, I'm whacking the top of the water with the rod. But I decided, okay, I'm going to try in a different area too. Once the bite seemed like it subsided a little bit, it went down a little bit. So I made my way to another part of the lake, and I kept that boy howdy on, and lo and behold, I was able to catch another nice bass. So I got 3 or 4 really nice fish in probably less than an hour up shallow right after a storm. So my buddy was right. He had it right. After a storm, those bass went shallow and they wanted topwater. There's no sense to it. A lot of guys will tell you that's crazy. After a rain, those bass go deep. The banks get muddy, especially in clear water. Those bass are running away from it and they go deep. And I'm telling you what, there were a lot of mud lines around. There was quite a bit of mud in the water. But those bass, they were most definitely still shallow. So break the rules. Find out what works for you. Watch the bass and how they react on your particular body of water. If what you are told to do doesn't work, well then do something different. It doesn't make any sense to keep doing something that's not working. And when it comes to bass fishing, we've always got to be able to adapt. We've always got to be able to change up, because those bass are living, breathing animals with brains. They're not static. They change too. And as the years go on and they adjust to fishing pressure, well, a lot of the things that we were told, they just become outdated. They weren't wrong when they started, but bass evolve. They evolve their tactics and they evolve where they are based on fishing pressure. So don't forget that. Go out on your fishery, give it a try. Try doing something different. Try doing something wacky and insane. The most wacky and insane thing that you can think of, where other anglers will look at you and say, man, you are nuts. I bet you a lot of times you'll have a lot more success than you think you would. So there you have it. Don't be afraid to bend the rules or break them once in a while. Try something crazy. I'm telling you, a lot of times the results will be a lot better than you think. Instead of thinking it from an angler's perspective, think of it from the bass's perspective. Like we've said before, lures don't catch fish. Bass pattern and bass behavior does. And only by observing the bass on your fishery, because every fishery is unique, can you really find out what those bass are after and start catching fish after fish after fish. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.